All right, hello everyone. My name is Jody Sutherland, and I am an assistant professor in the Department of Community and Behavioral Health. I appreciate you all joining today's Lunch and Learn, and I also want to thank the organizers of the event, the Office of Equity and Inclusion. I'm excited to share my presentation with you. It's entitled Ageism Awareness and Age-Friendly Universities. The front end of the presentation, I'll just kind of talk through my slides, and then we'll leave about 20-25 minutes at the end for open conversation. So let's go ahead and get to it. Today we'll discuss ageism in higher education and how the age-friendly university movement is essential for supporting the growing age diversity on college campuses. And then we'll wrap things up with a discussion about age-friendly strategies that you can employ in your role at ETSU. So ageism in higher education is a real challenge, but many individuals are unaware of it. And I want to start with some background information to set the context for our discussion today. This video was created by the World Health Organization Global Campaign to Combat Ageism.
Seems like we're not getting the volume or the audio.
No audio?
Yeah.
Let's see, Chastity, I don't know. Let me stop my share and let me reshare with audio. Thank you, Beth.
So what's this all about?
Cachette again, so
I'm too old for this.
You just want me to say what people say about me.
Weird question, I guess.
My teacher says you'll grow out of it. It's just a phase.
It was never a phase. I never grew out of it.
I guess I'm too reckless, I don't know.
People like to talk very loudly to me.
They say I don't think things through.
You're looking still good for your age.
I'll figure it out when I'm older.
you are having a senior moment.
When the focus is on my age,
Life seems to get a little bit harder.
It feels like I'm not given a chance.
I need to keep up.
Or get out of the way.
I lack experience.
Or too much experience.
I'm baggage.
Only weighing people down.
Looking at my age,
Like it is a disease.
where I work, no one takes me seriously.
It makes me feel powerless.
And it hurts.
When people see only my age.
So as this video demonstrated, negative stereotypes and attitudes about age can impact anyone. The term ageism was first coined in 1969 by Dr. Robert Butler, and it describes the process of systemic stereotyping and discrimination against older persons. And while anyone can experience prejudice and discrimination at any age, it is most often directed against individuals who are older. Experts call ageism the unnoticed ism. Yet ageism is everywhere in society. And it's something that most all of us will experience at some point in our lives. So how is ageism manifested? Ageist beliefs and ideas are often ingrained in our social and cultural fabric and interact with other elements to work together to create what we call systemic ageism in our institutions and then also among individuals. And these interactions work together to sustain ageist attitudes, policies, and practices. Systemic ageism also shapes the beliefs that we hold about ourselves and our abilities as we age. And ageism has its worst effects when it intersects with other forms of discrimination. In 2019, the University of Michigan surveyed individuals between the ages of 50 and 80 to learn about their experiences with what they call everyday ageism. The majority of respondents said that they regularly experience at least one form of everyday ageism, and this included exposure to ageist messages, language and content, ageism through social interactions, and then also that internal ageism, or the negative beliefs that we hold about ourselves. And then overall, 40% of people that were surveyed in this study said that they experience all three forms of ageism on a regular basis. We've all heard the children's rhyme, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me." And that's simply not true. Ageist beliefs and attitudes and language do harm us. According to Dr. Robert Levy, a professor at Yale University, ageism results in more than just hurt feelings or even discriminatory behavior. According to Levy's research, positive perceptions of aging can add up to 7.5 years to your life compared to having negative perceptions about aging. And these negative perceptions or internalized ageism have their origins in how society views aging. Levy asked people to think of 5 words to describe an older adult. In the US, the most common response was memory loss. In China, it was wisdom. This research gives us some insight into how the US views aging. Common societal archetypes of aging in the West are generally negative. In 1979, Kalish introduced a new concept called New Ageism. And according to New Ageism, older adults are viewed as relatively helpless and dependent on others to provide support. Unfortunately, ageism is one of the last socially acceptable prejudices, and is associated with a host of poor physical and mental health outcomes among older adults. For example, approximately 6.3 million cases of depression globally are linked to ageism. And the various forms of ageism also increase an older adult's risk of social isolation and loneliness, financial insecurity, poor quality of life, and even premature death. Ageism also costs billions of dollars to the US economy. According to a 2020 report by Dr. Levy, ageism contributes to an excess annual cost of $63 billion in the US alone. And one factor contributing to these excess costs is that ageism seeps into healthcare and how we use age as a determining factor for how we provide and ration treatment. In a separate study, a systematic review found that in 85% of studies, age determined who received medical treatment and the type of care that they received. Ageism also seeps into our college campuses, and it affects students, staff, and faculty. Older students' needs and circumstances are often not considered in university policy and programming. Universities may pass over older candidates for positions, favoring younger ones. And universities continue to use terms such as traditional and non-traditional students, despite that terminology potentially being obsolete. And I'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. And then lastly, faculty and employees may use patronizing language and refer to the students as kids. In addition, physical spaces are often non-inclusive and accommodating for everyone, regardless of age and ability. According to the United Nations, individuals with disabilities are the most marginalized, vulnerable, and excluded group on college campuses, even though they represent over 15% of the world's population. In addition, academic programs and course material lack focus on the evolving needs of an aging society. And when included, the aging population is typically mischaracterized through a negative stereotypes lens. As a result, students bring these ageist beliefs into their careers, which is particularly problematic in healthcare professions. Lastly, there are limited opportunities for older learners to fully participate in campus life. Most colleges were not designed with these non-traditional students in mind, and as a result, older students often feel that they don't belong. You can just look at most universities' websites and note the underrepresentation of students who are older. As a result, research has classified these non-traditional students as a neglected population on college campuses and largely invisible to higher education. So we have examined ageism in society and higher education, and now let's discuss the age-friendly university movement. First, I want to discuss why an age-friendly university approach is needed by framing the issue around a few key emerging opportunities. So Americans are living longer than ever before. The older adult population is projected to nearly double by 2060 to 95 million, or about 25% of the population. And we will see the most dramatic growth among adults 85 years and older, which is significant because this group is most in need of help with basic personal care and most at risk for isolation. There are more than 1.6 million people ages 65 and older in Tennessee, and that represents approximately 17% of Tennessee's residents. Tennessee experienced a 37.5% increase in its older adult population between 2010 and 2020, and this trend is expected to continue over the next several decades. Approximately 12,000 baby boomers, that's individuals born from 1946 to 1964, turned 65 every day, or roughly 4.4 million Americans in 2024 alone. The year 2030 marks a demographic turning point for the United States because beginning that year, all baby boomers will be older than 65 years of age. And then in just a few short years after that, 2034, or some reports say 2035, the number of adults older than 65 will edge out children in population size for the first time in US history. I do want to acknowledge that depending on how it's used, terminology like baby boomer can be othering and perpetuate negative stereotypes. So I just wanted to bring that forward during the presentation. Increased longevity is creating an unprecedented time in US history where we have unlimited opportunities for connecting with people across generational divides. 4-generation family dynamics are now commonplace. Even 5-generation families are becoming the norm. And this is a picture of my own family. This is my grandfather, my dad, my sister's children, and her 2 children. Now families are even celebrating 6 generations. And in some cases, families are celebrating 7 generations of family members. And that's just amazing. Due to increased longevity, family life as we know it is being transformed. Multi-generational households have grown over the past several decades. The Pew Research Center estimates that the number of Americans living in multi-generational households is 4 times larger than it was in the 1970s. And that translates to 1 in 4 Americans living in a multi-generational family arrangement and having an opportunity to interact with people across generations. These demographic shifts are also giving rise to a multi-generational workforce. Employers have 4 and even in some cases 5 generations working side by side. And since the 1990s, a rising share of older adults are working. They're working more hours on average compared to previous decades. So 62% of older workers work full-time compared with 47% in 1987. And the US Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates that roughly 1 in 4 workers is 55 or older. This came as a surprise to me. It may come as a surprise to you that individuals 75 and older are the fastest growing age group in the workforce. These workers have quadrupled in size since 1964. Older workers are also as likely as younger workers to have a 4-year college degree. And these trends are all the result of increased longevity. And I just want to do a shameless plug here. In 2022, I launched an initiative called the Century Club of East Tennessee to pay tribute to our region's oldest residents. So if you know someone who will celebrate their 100th birthday, or they're already 100 years or older, we would love to induct them into the Century Club. So please reach out to me via email, or you can also visit our website at www.centuryclubnetn.com or search for us on the web. Age diversity on college campuses is another emerging opportunity. Education doesn't end at 24. And the picture of a traditional college student is typically one that's in their late teens or early 20s. But if you take a deeper look at the demographics of the college student population, you may see a more diverse population than you first imagined. So as our world is aging and becoming more intergenerational and multi-generational, universities are in a unique position to respond. We have a new wave of students that have been taking over our college campuses. So over 47% of undergraduate students in the United States are considered non-traditional. A non-traditional student is someone that is over the age of 25. They may be a parent or a guardian of children or a caregiver. They are those individuals who have taken time off from education and those who work full-time and only go to school part-time. Currently, 1 in 10 students are over the age of 40, and that represents about 3.3 million students in the United States. And although only 0.3% of college students are 65 or older, it does demonstrate that older adults do have a presence on college campuses as well. Research also suggests that we may underreport the number of older adults enrolled in higher education because our data often does not include non-degree programs, or it doesn't actually isolate 50+ learners. But research suggests that that number is growing. And so together, these trends are contributing to the growing age diversity on our college campuses. As a result, some argue that the term non-traditional student is obsolete and no longer needed. Despite the growing age diversity on college campuses, university policies and culture have remained largely stagnant. And researchers argue that if universities are to succeed in the world today, they need to adapt to meet the evolving needs of a diverse student and employee base. So population aging and the growing age diversity on college campuses represent a unique opportunity for universities to reimagine their role in both education and in the communities in which they exist. So the classic example of a full-time student is one who graduates high school, goes on to college, and completes that degree in 4 years, and that individual may either continue to grad school or go into the workforce. And then ultimately that individual reaches retirement. But the path is much more fluid today. Higher education isn't only for people in their late teens or early 20s. Increasingly, as I've already discussed in the presentation, middle-aged and older adults are returning to college for lifelong learning opportunities, for career advancement, and also for enrichment opportunities. And so universities need to evolve to meet the growing demand for learning throughout the different stages of our lives. Some argue that older adults may even be the next wave of college students. And according to Laura Karstensen, she's the founding director of the Stanford Center on Longevity, it makes no sense to have an educational system that ends in the 20s when people are likely to be working into their 80s. And so she says we need to rethink things, and I think we do. So universities can reap the rewards of increasing age diversity on their campuses. So there's definitely an economic benefit. So there's a direct ROI or economic benefit among universities who expand their focus on age diversity within their policies, programs, culture, and the entire ecosystem. Individuals 50 and older are an economic powerhouse in the United States. According to AARP, individuals 50 and older contribute $8.3 trillion to the US economy. That's the equivalent to the 3rd largest economy in the world. And by 2050, that number will more than triple to $28.2 trillion. Universities have also experienced lower traditional student enrollments, and according to Dr. Leadhall, some colleges and universities may even shut down due to lower enrollment in traditional age students. So increasingly, universities are turning to non-traditional students, including older adults, retirees, and alumni, to increase revenue by offering lower cost programming. There is also an educational dividend. Population aging is cross-cutting. It impacts every sector of society, policy, business, service industry, to healthcare professions, and beyond. And so universities are in the business of training the workforce and preparing individuals to succeed in their professions and the world as we know it. So universities have an opportunity to strengthen their aging curriculum across degree programs. And then most importantly, advancing age-friendly principles in higher education is a matter of equity. The principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion undergird higher education and confirm that combating ageism is an important dimension of that strategy. So promoting age inclusivity in higher education is a prerequisite, in my opinion. So we have discussed the why and the rationale for age-friendly universities. Now let's turn our attention to what the Age-Friendly University Global Network is. So the age-friendly university movement is part of a larger aging ecosystem. The age-friendly ecosystem is a multi-sectoral movement to adapt society to meet the needs of older adults. And you can see that age-friendly universities are a part of that ecosystem. The Age-Friendly University Global Network formed in 2012 in Dublin City University. And the network was formed out of a desire to identify the contributions that higher education could make in meeting the needs of older adults. The network currently consists of 110 members spanning 5 continents, and the majority of these institutions are located in Europe and the United States. During the initial meeting, a team of stakeholders identified 6 pillars of institutional activity around which age-friendly educational programs and practices could be built. And these include teaching and learning, research and innovation, lifelong learning, intergenerational learning, encore careers, and civic engagement. And from these pillars, a set of 10 AFU principles was articulated, and member institutions are guided by these 10 AFU principles. And these principles really focus on promoting an inclusive environment and one that supports older adults in higher education. So engaging older adults in core university activities, promoting personal and career development for all, accepting a wide range of educational needs, promoting intergenerational learning, expanding or providing access to online education, incorporating the needs of older adults into the research agenda, appreciating the value of the longevity dividend, enhancing access to wellness and cultural events, engaging the university's retiree community, and then engaging in dialogue with organizations that represent the aging population. So joining the network offers institutions the opportunity to participate in emerging age-friendly efforts. Universities commit to promoting positive and healthy aging on their campuses and in their communities. And then they also commit to enhancing the lives of older adults through inclusive education, research, and community engagement agendas. So how are universities championing the Age-Friendly University 10 principles on their campuses? So they are offering lifelong learning opportunities that are low cost or no cost, and also accessible to alumni in the community. They offer a range of courses and degree programs in lifespan studies, aging, and gerontology. And some of these even include study abroad programs that focus on aging. They craft new opportunities for intergenerational learning and mentoring, both in the classroom and in the community. They offer resources for healthy aging to the community, and they incorporate healthy aging into their health centers. They engage the community in outreach, targeting older adults to connect them with the campus programs and civic and cultural activities. And they offer a myriad of learning and social programs, allowing individuals 50 and older to explore their passions and creativity. And then lastly, they engage in research critical to aging, and that is cross or interdisciplinary in nature. Other initiatives include strong partnerships with the community, identifying barriers to physical access in universities such as signage and walkways and transportation, establishing a continued association with retired faculty and employees to engage them in different research projects and collaborative endeavors. They also serve in leadership activities or capacities in the community that are focused on age-friendly initiatives. And then lastly, they align the campus culture and strategic vision with lifelong learners in mind. And so ETSU can expand its leadership and innovation footprint in the region by endorsing and joining the AFU Global Network. The AFU tenets strongly align with ETSU's 6 institution-wide areas of focus. And so you can map these onto the AFU principles. So there's a lot of similarity there. So that total university experience can really embrace this whole concept of age-friendly. And then from a regional perspective, there are 5 universities in Appalachia that have endorsed and are members of the Age-Friendly University Global Network. There aren't currently any AFU institutions in the South Central region of Appalachia, which is where ETSU is located. And if you'll look here at the member institutions, you'll notice that there are no institutions in Tennessee. So ETSU could really be a leader in this area. And last year, Dr. Deborah Slauson and I presented at the 5th annual ETSU Equity and Inclusion Conference, and our presentation was entitled Widening Participation for Lifelong Learners, Making the Case for Age-Friendly Universities. And we used an interactive format and had those that attended the session review the AFU 10 principles and strategies, and then to explore the following questions. What aspects of the AFU approach are instructive? What are your perceptions about the age-friendliness of ETSU's campus? And then lastly, how can you adopt a more age-friendly approach in your professional role? And so this is a summary of the key takeaways from everyone's responses. So in terms of opportunities, folks really highlighted the opportunity of promoting more intergenerational learning inside and outside of the classroom. We discussed widening access to online educational opportunities with a focus on accessibility, usability, and training. Integrating older learners in all aspects of academic life, and then increasing the understanding of students of the longevity dividend within the curriculum that we already teach. And then in terms of perceptions of age friendliness at ETSU, the attendees discussed the fact that services may exist for non-traditional students and the diversity of employee needs, but they're not obvious to students and employees. Strategic supports are needed for older students and employees. This includes technology training, elder care, tutoring, and other different supports. They mentioned that ageism does exist on our campus. It's reflected in our culture, the types of activities, etc. We had a lot of discussion about enhancing the focus of age-friendly, disability-friendly physical infrastructure at the university, making things more accessible to individuals. And then there was discussion about leveraging retirees and alumni in a really meaningful way through university activities and collaboratives. So we are hoping to launch, we're trying to launch an initiative at ETSU to begin the process of joining the AFU Global Network. We're working in collaboration with the Provost's Office, the Office of Equity and Inclusion, Disability Services, and the College of Public Health. And again, we'd like to kick things off this spring. Currently, we're working to identify champions to spearhead the initiative, and we'll develop either a steering committee or a task force to guide these efforts. Later this year, we will develop an assessment plan, and the AFU Global Network provides a lot of resources and tools that we can build upon. And then we'll use that assessment plan to conduct an assessment in the spring of 2025, hopefully, to assess our university climate, policies, resources, and programming. And then later in 2025, we would use those findings to develop an action plan to highlight our strengths, because we're already doing some things well, I think, and then opportunities for improvement. And then by the fall of 2025, we hope to have obtained the AFU designation. So we'll have some open discussion at the end, but if this is something you're interested in being a part of and would like to be a part of the conversation, please feel free to reach out to me. And then lastly, here are some practical tools that you can use to educate others about ageism and this whole concept of growing age diversity on our college campuses. So first, you can play an advocacy role and help dispel myths and stereotypes. So if you hear folks use language like the gray tsunami, you can counter that message with something positive like the longevity dividend. You can also pay more attention to the things you say and how others talk about older adults. So, you know, we might catch ourselves saying things like, well, he's 80, but he's still sharp, he's still driving. And so this language insinuates that he's an exception, or this individual's an exception to the rule, and that the average 80-year-old wouldn't be able to do these things. So that's another way that we can dispel some of those negative stereotypes. We can also use age-inclusive language. So this can be modeled after the APA approach. And so instead of saying older adults, we would say individuals 65 and older. And again, that whole concept of positive messaging. So have folks say, ask me about 7.5 years and tell them about the fact that having positive perceptions of aging can add 7.5 years to an individual's life. And then you can also just educate others about population aging, that individuals 85 and older are the fastest growing segment of the population globally, and we're living longer than ever before. And so it's an amazing accomplishment. In terms of academics and research, we can infuse content about aging in your courses, your presentations and talks. You can also reach out to AARP and bring Disrupt Aging to your classroom. They can do this virtually. I think this would be a really good learning tool for our students across programs. You can provide opportunities for intergenerational engagement, ask students to engage with their grandparents or another older family member, bring that kind of intergenerational engagement into the classroom. You can also encourage flexibility in the classroom. Learners have different needs in terms of accommodating deadlines and things like that. So take that into consideration, can be helpful to students. And then lastly, engaging older adults in our research agendas, all the way from problem identification to program evaluation. So make them active participants or members of the research agenda itself. In terms of campus life, you can engage with individuals across the generational divide or bridge, as I would like to call it. So having friends in all generations, much like having friends from different cultures, just gives us a richer perspective. And so, look for opportunities to do that. And then lastly, embrace your age. Stop hiding or fibbing about your age and be proud of your age and all the positive things that comes with growing older. And then here are some other resources that you can explore. I'll give this presentation to Chastity, and they can upload this if they want alongside the video recording, or you can request this from me via email. There's a lot of really neat and cool resources. I really like Old School Anti-Ageism Clearinghouse. They have excellent graphics, videos, and content that's really useful, and it spans just lots of different areas related to aging. So I finished my portion of the presentation, and now I want to open the floor up for some discussion. What information surprised you? What reflections do you have about the AFU approach? And how might ETSU embrace the growing age diversity on campus? So I'm going to stop the screen share and just open the floor to some conversation now.
I have a question. This is Brittany. I'm over in chemistry. I was just wondering what you think about these young professional group organizations, or the awards for 30 under 30 and 40 under 40. Oftentimes with folks getting into the workforce or higher education later, it seems that I'm not sure how to word this, but it's like, oh, shucks, I just missed that cutoff, you know? And so
Yeah.
it seems like there's opportunities or things that aren't available to a certain population anymore.
Yeah, I agree, Brittany. So maybe we need to rethink that whole idea of like you said, the up and coming 30-year-olds or up and coming 40-year-olds, because now it's even spanning to the up and coming 70-year-olds who are, moving into new areas of, opportunities in terms of the workforce and expanding their professional resume, if you will. So you bring up a good point, Brittany. So I think those are some conversations we can have and should be having.
Thank you.
What about others? What information surprised you?
Just want to say thanks for the insightful presentation. It was very informative and helped to shift a lot of perceptions and even just some of the lockstep use of language that we see and that we need to think about how we're going to address thoughtfully. And I know we have a work cut out for us, but this has really laid the good groundwork. Thanks so much. I wish I could stay longer. I have to go prep for class. I have to leave, unfortunately, but very interested. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I know as I was preparing for the presentation, I was really surprised. I've seen some data that says that individuals 65 and older represent the fastest growing group in the workforce, but to learn that individuals 75 and older are the fastest growing workforce, I'm amazed. That's just wonderful, but I was surprised. So that was something that surprised me, like I said, as I prepped for the session. So what do you think about the utility of the age-friendly university approach at ETSU? Do you think it's something that we should adopt and embrace? And is it something that's needed on our campus?
Go ahead, Beth.
I'm so sorry. Jody, it seemed like you sort of create your own rubric or points to consider within those categories of overall structure as you work towards that. Is that accurate, or did they provide more detailed?
So typically, when folks, start to work through this age-friendly university approach, they identify their strengths, what they're already doing well, and then some opportunities for improvement. And like you said, Beth, within that framework, they'll select one or two kind of key points that they really want to target for their university. So it may be increasing intergenerational engagement opportunities or, expanding their footprint in the community, those types of things. But it's not necessarily that they try to take on all of those 10 different principles at one time.
I think a couple of things for me, Jody, and that was a great presentation, very insightful, very informative. I'm thinking about when you started, you talked about how ageism is one of those isms that typically, it doesn't really get a rise like the other ones out of individuals. And I'm probably guilty of that. We have all kind of slogans we use. And it just kind of goes over the head of everyone because people typically, it just don't, we just don't think it's bad. But as I've gotten older, then obviously, you pay more attention to those kinds of things. But back to the question you asked about a campus, a campus that's better equipped to serve folks who are aging. I think, as you and I, and we've talked before, I think this is, we have a great opportunity here at East Tennessee State University. Just recently, I celebrated 30 years of being here on a campus. But there were people who celebrated being here 40 years and people celebrated being here 45 years. And every year, what's interesting is that pool of people gets bigger and bigger, right? Mm-hmm. I was even pleasantly surprised that it was so many of us who came here with me who are still here. And so, as that population continues to grow, obviously there are a lot of things on this campus we probably need to consider that we haven't been considering in the past. So I think this presentation is timely. I think, again, as I said, I think we have a great opportunity here at the university to begin looking at this as a priority because the population is growing as we age, as well as, that impact will be reflected here on the campus of ETSU.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I think about, my own time as a student. So I'm a family caregiver and have been for almost 20 years. And when you think about the diversity of needs, we have a lot of employees and students who are in caregiving roles. And, oftentimes policies don't cover those individuals if it's not, in terms of FMLA policy, it's limited in terms of who you can classify as, typically it's your spouse or your children or your parents. And so I provide care to a grandparent, and I had, supportive faculty members as a student and also as an employee, but there's a lot of impact there when we think about the growing number of our employee base and our student base who are coming to campus and who are caregivers. And we'll continue to see that. Like I said, I cannot believe that we're now seeing 7 generations of family members being celebrated. I mean, that's amazing. And so someone is taking care of those individuals if they have, health decline. And so oftentimes we see those individuals still in the workforce or, continuing their education. So there needs to be accommodations for those individuals as well. That gets more to a policy issue, but those are some things I think we can consider long-term too. What about others? What information surprised you? How do you feel you can better? Go ahead.
I wanted to just kind of touch back on the non-traditional student language and how we as ETSU can look at this region and understand that we do have a large population of what we used to classify as non-traditional students. But what new marketing or advertising can we do to change that perception of they're different and have be able to reach out to them, but also accommodate them when they're here on campus?
Yeah, that's a good point, Susan. And just thinking about, our region is becoming a hub for retirement. And so how can, like you said, how can we market what we offer here at the university? And also, if you look at just this from a state standpoint, Northeast Tennessee has a higher proportion of individuals 65 and older. And that trend will continue compared to the rest of the state. So I do think, like you said, there's a new niche, if you will, of marketing that we could capitalize on. So there's definitely that economic dividend to shifting our focus a little bit.
Well, I also like the fact that if you tie in the intergenerational with the education, whether it's academics or even travel, study abroad, having that diverse community or cohort of students with different ages really does make a difference on the experience and the what they bring away from that in both the younger student and the older student or an older community member.
So what do you think, where are some opportunities for ETSU? We've talked a little bit about marketing. What's another opportunity where ETSU can capitalize on the growing age diversity on its campus? What's some other things we might, maybe some low-hanging fruit that we could do pretty easily? Anyone have any thoughts about that?
I wonder with the community engaged learning initiative, if there can be some opportunity for those community partnerships, being inclusive of organizations that work with older adults and also older adults that are leading organizations for that intergenerational education that you were talking about.
Yeah, that's a good idea as well. So really maximizing that and maybe targeting specific organizations or at least ensuring that we have them as a part of the mix that they're represented. So I like that idea as well. That's something we could readily do. What about others? I would like to go ahead, Brittany.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I noticed in some of my classes that technology has been a real big issue with students coming in and just not being as familiar with D2L or the testing center. And that's kind of been a hindrance for old and young. And so having additional support on the technology side, things that are specific to ETSU, I've seen that be a challenge in the past.
Yeah, Brittany, I agree. And that was when we met back in September, at the conference session that I mentioned, that was a big discussion that we offer some of this, or we have a pretty good in terms of like footprint on online education, but is it actually accessible and usable, and is training provided so that folks can figure out how to navigate it? Because like to your point, every semester I'll have students say that they don't really know how to navigate D2L, and instructors don't necessarily use it the same, so that the format may be different.
Right.
Yeah, so those were some of those entry barriers that we could help alleviate. Well, I'm really excited. I'd love to see ETSU lead the way in this region in kind of the whole age-friendly approach or initiatives, even beyond the university. But hopefully we can kick this whole age-friendly university initiative off this spring and really start working on that. And as I mentioned, I'd love to have others be a part of the conversation. So if it's something you're interested in engaging with more, feel free to reach out to me via email. Does anyone else have any insights? We may finish a little bit earlier. Any other comments from the group?
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I will make sure that we get the slides out to everyone. And we'll include the evaluation at that time. But thank you so much, Dr. Sutherland. I really enjoyed the statistics that you provided.
I appreciate that. So it'll have my contact information, the presentation will, but feel free to reach out to me and we'll continue the conversation. Take care, everyone.